2 or 3 letters to state that you're trying to gain access, and then you have data capture that you've actually been and carried out a visual inspection of what you can see, then that would be adequate. Now, ideally, as we know, you need to do your maintenance call from the inside, so you can double check the door closer, you can fully inspect all the margins on the door. That would be the standard prerequisite required on a maintenance call. So fully measured,
Would you inspect every door?
yes, you have to
Okay.
inspect every single door.
When you say you have to,
You have to have shown, as part of your maintenance guide, you have to have shown that you have attempted to maintain every single door, because obviously, as you're aware, in a fire, you're only as strong as your weakest point. And if you haven't inspected every door, if one door isn't compliant, that can let the fire obviously into the main access routes.
yeah, I appreciate that. All I'm saying is that the way I believe fire door inspections are actually managed is that they'll pick a percentage, and they'll
Well,
do a percentage, and then if they find a problem, then they go further. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, Elliot. I'm talking about the normal, what seems to be normal
well,
practice.
that isn't what I'm not saying that's not normal practice, because we don't deal with the maintenance arm, but
Yeah,
I would be, as a
disappointed.
manufacturer, I would be very disappointed, stroke appalled, if that's what's happening,
Yeah,
because it's not something you can take an average on, because every tenant will treat their door differently, and there are lots of different variables on that door that could potentially go wrong. So you couldn't, I don't know. It's not like a piece of ducting or something that you could take 5 different measurements along the ducting and go, well, this appears to be thinner in one part than the other, therefore we'll inspect all the different parts, because it's a continuous piece of tubing. This is a completely bespoke product that is treated differently by everybody who uses it, and the variables are there. And disaster, as I've said, is only one weakest link away.
no, I appreciate that. Yeah, so um, have we sent to you the? I think you were in my group, the group 1 group, which was inspecting new doors.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to just check to see that
So
what?
to be perfectly honest, it is remiss of me. I haven't. I've taken over as the sales director for the entire group, so
Have
I've
you?
been
Crikey.
absolutely snowed under. But I will have some time to review that document and come back to you. I think we did capture a lot in the group that we
I think we
talked
did.
through.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Um, as ever, there is just slightly different nuances between architect, manufacturer, and installer.
yeah,
As you can imagine, it's not always never the twain shall meet, but sometimes you do get differences. And I'll be perfectly honest, I know quite a bit about legislation, but there are people in these groups that literally live and breathe it every single day. So
yeah.
I do sometimes bow to their greater knowledge, but I just know what we have to conform to as a basically a manufacturer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so if uh, and would anybody else, rather than it dumping on your shoulders, would somebody else be able to look at the Type 3 surveys, which is the regular inspections?
So
Uh,
I
w-
I could filter that down to, because obviously we have a fabricator base. We don't make the doors ourselves or install them. We are the custodian of the product.
yes,
So I could filter that down, and we have a Type 3 maintenance, if you like, which is just the bog standard BM Trada Type 3, what they would consider as their maintenance. That's what we've put on our system for our data tag. So that is the stipulations that they have to follow.
and would you be able to provide, or do you think they would be able to provide photographs that we could then use in the guide? you'll be credited, or they'll be credited with them. It would just be good to have some photographs that aren't from, healthcare.
Yeah. Do you mean photographs of doors in situ,
Yes.
or well, as we move on, 100% we will be able to. I don't know if they've got any at the moment. I'm sure they will have a few. I can certainly ask. Let me just I can pen the email now to Chris.
It's not just the door in situ. It's particular elements of the inspection. So it won't be just a picture of the whole door. It could be a picture of something they're inspecting actually.
The hinges and things like that too. If I can just show you what I mean.
Yeah, let me just. So our guys, while you're doing that, George, our guys will be expected, I think, to show 3 or 4 different pictures. One of the entire door, which will have the door closer on. It will have the door in situ to show there's no damage. And then a couple of the others will be regarding the threshold and the margins around the door. That's primarily what they will be looking for.
Exactly. Yeah. So let me just share my screen. It's interesting that I don't know if you know, but the guy that's coordinating this for us is Alan Oliver. He's the one that did the work for. He's the author of this.
Yeah.
And the guidance. Paul Bray from Plymouth pointed me at the guidance that's come out from the government, and when I went into it, it's actually got Alan's examples.
That's it, right?
Yeah, which is nice. Yeah. But you see what he's got here, to indicate what damage is and all that sort of stuff. So if we could get some.
Yes. So you're looking for domestic. In essence, you're looking for domestic pictures rather than commercial. Yeah,
because I think a lot of the text, that it's a matter of doing a sanity check on the text. Alan's gone through and taken out where the references to healthcare buildings, but obviously, your chaps will have a better understanding just to see if there's anything daft in here that doesn't suit the. Do you get my drift? So. So this text here is what you've been, or what has been issued.
Sorry, George, back now.
Yeah, that's right, Paul. We're just talking about the work stream that Elliot's been helping with on standardising fire door inspections.
Oh, fire doors are easier, aren't they?
Absolutely.
I was just having a conversation there, funny enough. So I can't remember if you met Elliot, so I do apologise, mate. I think I've seen this bit. Have I seen this one before, George?
No. This is what we're currently working on.
Okay.
So what it is, Paul? It's a standard. Oh, sorry, it's guidance that has been produced by the NHS for, and it's got all the sort of senior people involved in it. So the National Fire Chiefs Council and all the rest of it. And what they've done, they've broken down fire door inspections into 3 types. One is checking a new fire door to make sure it's compliant. Then checking an existing fire door to make sure it's compliant. And both of those, once that's been done, you should never need to do a type 1 or a type 2 again, as long as you keep your records correct. And then you've got
about the major service and the following on service, the same thing we're doing all the other kit. Yeah, it's good.
Exactly. And then you've got a type 3, which is as you say, the ongoing financial service. And then section 4 is putting that into a fire door management system. So we've had about 50 people involved in this up till now over the last 2 or 3 months. And our objective is to take this document, which is pretty good, we feel, and just make sure that it's relevant to housing. So I was just asking, Elliot's a fire door manufacturer. So he's been helping on the fire door, on the inspection side of things. Oh, sorry, on new door inspections. And Elliot, Paul works for Mace.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's a technical director or something like that.
We're so good. I haven't got a bloody plug socket to plug my damn laptop into. So if you lose me, I apologise in advance. I'm trying
Not
to
too
find
technical then.
We're not technically enough to get the bloody plug sockets to work, right? You know. Oh, the joys, the joys, the joys.
But Paul's particular expertise is in the M&E element of things, and smoke control and things like that.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'll do it as well. If you give me 1 second, I think I've got the power. Nope, I haven't got the power. Have I got the power? I've got the power. I'm there. I'm in. It's back. We have life. Now, what it is, I'll just share something quickly because you'll find this interesting. I haven't had a chance to talk before, so give me 1 second. Let me just share my screen. Which one have we got? Which one here up for the minute? Okay, give me 1 second. We'll do the. Oh, there, doing right. So, I don't know if you've seen any of this. We did a big exercise a while ago. There's me and Paul White, who's the chief protagonist of fire dampers and smoke control. Because there's a lot of good work going around us at the moment. What we try to do, is if I just bring this down quickly, get down to the screen properly. There's a lot of work going on with the FIs because I do a lot of work with Joe Cillian and McAlway as well around walls as a system, right? So even though I'm mechanical, electrically, I'm building services by degree and the rest of it and chartership, I do a lot more on walls and things that go into it. My nickname's always been doors, walls, and floors because it ends up, if you don't sort those bits out, you can't put something through it. So we're trying to get to the point where everyone recognises that, and I'll say a few things, correct me at will, is that you don't have to test fire doors in both directions by standard. You have to do it for national regulation, not by standard, right?
Yeah.
Whereas dampers, you have to test both ways because they're automatically classed as asymmetrical in the standard, where doors aren't classed as asymmetrical. But you'll have things in that standard about whether you believe it is. But in national regs, it says you've got to make sure they're tested both ways around. It's all in Doc B from memory, right? So we look at all these things like doors, pipe work and stuff like that. And if you look at, say, pipe work, and people think it's fairly straightforward, right? And what we did for public health for Sibsey this year, we presented this part here because I sit on this group here and I do a lot of stuff around process working. So when you look at how complicated, like I'll show you what fire dampers look like when we started off, because George since before, we looked at the process for selecting one damper and one wall, and that's what it came out at, right?
Wow.
And that is as simple as you could make it. If you look at fishboning stuff, that's what it is, but it's done in a different format. How you look to get the risk of the space, the space risk, how that affects the resistance classification you need. Like for doors, it could be you need an E rating, a W rating for a glass part of it. You need an I rating. You might need an S rating, depending on what you're doing. And you've obviously got kit that sits on the door, which has all got its own testing parameters. There's a lot to it. So for doors, I'd expect this to be fucking enormous, right? When we looked at, say, I've got smoke control ducts on here. It's not the same thing, but you'll see we did smoke control ducts, right, and fire resistant ducts, right. We haven't finished this one off. It's going to get bigger. That's what it kind of looks like. You can see how complicated it is. It's all about, again, space risk and system type, how it operates. Because just to explain it earlier, everything's got ways to describe it. So is it dynamic? Is it performing a function like a smoke control system or sprinkler? It's doing an active part. Or is it transient? Because a fire door's transient, isn't it? Because you walk through it. It can be open, swing both ways. It was getting into a different language where you go because let's be quite frank, the industry is full of very uneducated people. I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but the knowledge is not very good. I've often joked when I've done lectures and said, if you put ellipse on the table and the instruction says remove cap and push up bottom, I don't know where they're going to put it. That's the industry that you work in, right?
Yeah.
But it's all based on space risk, So some things are static, like pipe work. But when you take pipe work, because I sit on the test stand for this, it goes through a wall, so it's a horizontal component in the vertical wall. When you take I'm just going to see if I can do the quick comparison. Do excuse me, I was out last night and there was a lot of alcohol involved, so I do apologise if I'm stuttering a bit. When you take fire dampers, I've got the diagram here. They're a vertical device and a vertical wall, so
Yeah.
that it's not the same V and H. They're opposed. Where pipework would be horizontal, this would be vertical. Does that make sense? So
Yep.
there's nuances around all these components when you look at things as a system. So when you get back to this, you go, well, the system approach is understanding what goes in it and the wall itself and its ability to house it all, whether it's the hole sizes, the amount of holes within it, and actually whether it is actually the appropriate substrate in the first place. Because I'm sure, Elliot, you'll probably hopefully confirm this. Some fire doors will only work in brick and block and some will work in both.
Yeah, so we've tested in several different substrates, because you need, obviously, the wall, the substrate
There's
is
no field of application, is there, for
no.
doors essentially?
So we have
Yeah.
tested in drywall, we've tested in brick, we've tested in block, we've tested in stud.
Sharp wall.
The only thing we haven't tested on is the only thing we haven't tested in is no fines, and that's occasionally what comes up, and we have to walk away from those projects.
Yeah, because what's going on at the moment, right? It's a bit like, and this is to give you a different way of, because I need some help probably from yourself, and I've mentioned it to George previously, probably in a conversation, or probably in the pub this year, but I need some help developing the flow chart for doors, right? And because what I need to try, what we're trying to do with PFKG, and you'll see this because I got some stuff to send over to George on this because I did a presentation with the SCP and Leeds on it, and the guy Douglas from the Architectural Ironmongers was there. Do you know Douglas?
I've not come. I might have done. I
Yeah,
might
he's like the Institute of Architectural Ironmongers. He's
Is it Doug Masterson?
Yeah, Doug Masterson. That's it.
Yeah.
Fucking brilliant guy. He's absolutely big character. Great guy. He did a presentation on doors. It was mind blowing. So I need a bit of help, and I've got to get this into an order, because what I'm trying to do is when you look at pipe work, I'm not finished pipe work off yet. You've got to go, what do you need to select in relation to the material to know what it is? Well, you've got to know actually whether it's, so let's just say, I'm going to correct this now. I mean to correct this for days. I need to understand whether it's continuous through the wall in the same material for the next compartment, or whether one material changes to another and it goes through the wall, and which direction that is, or whether it's basically a pipe that goes through the wall which is uncapped and uncapped. So it could be a steel tube going through a wall and someone's put plastic either side of it. That becomes a UU test.
Right.
It'll never pass. It'll fail. Because all the fire and strike just go straight for the hole.
Yeah.
So there's things like this that I have to consider. I want to know the material and the bore thickness, especially when it comes down to combustible pipes, because it doesn't always crush the thicker bore pipes if it's been tested on a thinner bore. Does that make sense? And the reaction to fire with the plastic's important, because no good putting it on a polyethylene pipe and it's got a reaction to fire of F, where the one it was tested on was B. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
One's going to flame for the wall and set the other room on fire. And these are the questions that don't get asked, because as a tier one contractor, I've called us out externally and gone, do you know what? Screw the product manufacturers. We don't know what we're doing. We do not know how we get to what's appropriate for the circumstances before you even get down to doing inspections, right?
Yeah.
So what we did was, just to fill you in, we sort of went, if I got the other diagram here, hold on, because I'm jumping around. This probably deserves a bit more time. I've actually, fortunately, I've got to go down to look at a load of dampers installed incorrectly in a job, because I love doing that. Honestly, not. But essentially, we've got to get to a point where we can get people to behave, which is the procurement bill piece from David Mosley, how people behave around it, how you work out what's appropriate for the circumstances. Because there's 5 QA points, and those 5 QA points, you just basically see them, which was that,
Yeah.
the building type and risk of the space, because that will vary. And if you think it from the fire door perspective, there's nothing worse when you do the big unveiling, like Picasso, and someone goes, "What's that?" And he goes, "Well, of course it fucking looks like a." Do you know what I mean? It's got to be, in thread purposes, linked back to what the risk of the space was initially. Was it sleeping risk? Was it phase evacuation? Is it an open riser across user groups? Because that's an S rating any day of the week, not an E rating. All these kind of things that come into it, you know. Is it an explosive atmosphere? Because if it's an explosive atmosphere, you might want an I rating on the door, regardless of 25% of the volume of the wall. Does that make sense? It's about getting
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
yeah, in George's terms, getting the ontology right. So you go, then you know if it's transient or static, you can tell how it operates, you know, because you've got DDA and security on doors. You might have shear locks, you might have multi-thread locks, Z brackets. So you just don't know, I don't know what it would be, well, what's appropriate. You might have crash bars, I don't know. Then you can classify it against all those parameters. So you get a number for what it actually should be based upon the risk of the space. Then you can compare wall type, what else is in the wall, which is that system approach, because no good you having a door that works in a drywall just to find out I've got a 2.2 meter by 1 meter duct that goes through it, and BG won't support the size because it's going back to block, and you find
Yeah.
your door's only tested in drywall, because they'll just go, Mr. Door Manufacturer, you haven't done your coordination. It's bollocks. So I'm saying this is why it's all going wrong. Then you can go, how do you install it? So we know for things like dampers, you need to have enough space to form the sill both sides. You've got to have access doors for cleaners. It's got breakaway joints. I've got walls on drawings showing right next to the ducts. And actually, because I've got to clean it, I still need a door. I can't ignore it. So this is giving proper guidance back to enable manufacturers, clients, architects to select things appropriately.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's two things in relation to digital side of it. Is that, and I think hopefully, George, you won't bite my head off when I say this, because it's not controversial, by the way, but it's just putting this into perspective. Is that to get the BIM side right and what's involved in putting it in Uniclass, I think will take a lot longer to get it right than I thought it would do, because I need to record in BIM, and I'll show you on. I won't show you the BIM sheet because it's just like death by 1,000 cuts. But when you look at the frame types of dampers, getting back to your thing about primary inspections, that's your primary inspection for that type of damper case that exists on the market. That's what I need to record on the first inspection. One of those ones with rods, I have to do that. I've recorded it all out in a format to enable people to do it. And this stuff will be coming out in things like NADC documents and, you know, BISA documents eventually will get released. So it's out there for everyone to use. But I think it will take a while before that's all in Uniclass, you know, inside the asset information properly. Because, I mean, George, if I just do this quickly, you'll see what I'm kind of indicating is that it takes a second to load this up, but it's bloody immense when you look at what you've got to try and record. So I think what will end up happening is that when we do these kind of process sheets to get to that appropriate product, to get down to actually that's what it is for that location, obviously you've got to compare all the component parts. That will transfer into the builder's work schedules initially. She'll end up with a schedule that shows what all the parameters of that selection is in that location. At least initially it's digitally recorded what it was. So it's hard to break that thread. And in time, I think when we get the BIM to catch up, they will transfer into the BIM. It will become a lot more intelligent with things like AI. I think you agree with what I'm saying there, Jules, or partly agree with it. It's going to take a bit of time to get that bit right, I think.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is that everybody at the moment is seeing that this information needs to be collected uniquely each time.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's just completely overwhelming, and it won't happen. I think what we've got to do is differentiate between what is static information and what is active information. And what I mean by that is the information that, for example, that Elliot would have about his doors. If that's a product, it's been tested, then the information on that, I think, probably would be static. In other words, it's you know, you've got it that's defined, and therefore, if you install 100 or 1,000 of those doors, the information is going to be the same.
Yeah.
The thing that's going to be different is what is done to that door to put it in the right context. So in other words, maybe it's got a couple of additional elements that make it appropriate for that door type. Yeah. So it may be that Elliot's door is is being used in a number of different things. But so the point, just hang on one second. So the point about this is that if we can differentiate between the static stuff and the stuff that needs to be collected each time, then it means that list that you've just shown earlier can be very, very substantially simplified.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I was just going to add to it. I'm totally with you, and I think one of the things I need to get to, and I think this is something that this is why I'm dragging you into PFKG in some form very, very soon, on process around all this BIM size, because to get to the point where you've got a way in which it goes. And I'm sure, Elliot, because you obviously work for a manufacturer, Elliot, I don't know if you represent any trade bodies and things like that, but how the information is presented to you generally is, can I have a fire door, please, mate? Yeah, that's what happens a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And like this was happening in the damper. Can I have a damper, please? We've been going to LDD and CLM. We do our penetration seals for pipes. Oh, we've got a non-combustible pipe or combustible pipe. Can you get me a seal for it? No one's going. Well, no one's going. Actually, can you get me a seal for a plastic pipe which has got a bore thickness of X? It's got a thermal property because it's cold water. With insulation of this type, it's not a crimped system. It's plastic, so it'll all fall away anyway. Because if you've got steel systems that are flanged, the requirement to fire resist the fixings extends a bit more than 500 off the wall. Because once the pipe falls off, it just drags it out the wall anyway. If it's a crimped system that basically, if it falls, it basically unclips. It doesn't matter. There's so much more to it than people realise, and it's going to be the same with fire doors. So I'm trying to get to a point where people go to manufacturers and ask for things in a better way. The manufacturer goes, actually, this is what I've got. Then you go and you're both meeting up. One's not speaking Italian, one's not speaking German. You're both speaking Italian. You know what you're doing. That's the bit I'm trying to get married up. And
with fire doors, you've got kind of, as you said, you've got the variables.
Yeah.
I like to strip it back to the BIM system where we as a manufacturer produce our door, which has, in essence, all its accreditations and test results exposed. So in BIM, for example, we've got our door set up so it has our min and max sizes, it has max opening sizes, it has all the wall substructure that it can go into, and then if an architect picks it, they know that the substructure that's going into, it's tested to whatever bi-directionally 30 minutes, and these are the bits you'll need to put with it to make it comply. If a builder, for example, or a developer came to us and said, we want a fire door, we take it on ourselves. We do not just sell fire doors to anybody. No. We would then do either a survey or we would ask the pertinent questions. I suppose where you're coming from is those pertinent questions. How do you standardize them?
Yeah, and I think it is, and it's and this is George originally. You take the credit for this, George. It's all about space risk, and it's about space risk. Once you know what the space risk is, you can identify your E and your S requirement. Do you know what I mean? Then your I requirement again can be about space risk as well, not just the volume of the wall. So it's about having those things, and we did it for dampers in relation to. Actually, I'm showing you on this. Actually,
can I just for Cliff's benefit? So Cliff's a colleague of mine. Yeah. So
sorry, Cliff. I can't see he's on the call, so I do apologise for someone else.
No
worries.
Yeah. So what I was just going to say, as I understand it, Paul, an S rating. S stands for smoke.
S resistance period. Yeah, is it S200, Elliot? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Just makes. I don't want to get it wrong, mate, because I'm a bit feeble on this subject. Because you're here.
and an E rating or an I rating, what do they mean?
If I just bring up let me bring the better one up quickly. Hold on, where's it gone? This one didn't leave us better. So when you look at space risks, if you can see that.
Yes.
S
Oh
like
yeah, okay.
fire
Yeah,
integrity. I
yeah,
didn't call it integrity, I just called it fire because it's more palatable. Insulation and radiance is W. There is other things involved because for things like structure's got an R rating because it's about, you know, malleability is different. But I haven't put R on it because I'm not dealing with steel beams just yet. I will be because they go through walls. I still got to deal with them as a penetration. But there's a lot of guidance. So I've got to get. What I'm trying to do is get it all into the same format to enable an idiot sheet for people to do selection. The damper one's all gone through 2G6. We're all happy. This is right. It's going to go out on the website. So it's there. So George, you will get all this through. Then it's something you can use as well to your heart's content. You'll get the original PDFs as well. So, PowerPoints as well. Because you did let me borrow your key, if you remember. So
yeah, no, absolutely.
your fingerprints are on it, George. But look, can I be real? I've got to go over to this job now, and I've got people starting to crowd up over there. But we did Digital Construction Week. We're doing it all, yeah, George? Is that right?
Yeah, on the
Perfect.
18th. It's
18th.
I think it's at lunchtime, I think.
Yeah, perfect.
Just to let you guys know as well, I don't know if you've got anything planned in for FireX, but we'll be exhibiting there.
Yeah, that's the same time. Yeah,
is that the same one?
No,
yeah.
Is it the same? It's the same day. Yeah, same day.
So
it's across the corridor. So would you be? Are you going to be there, Elliot?
Yeah. So we're going to be hosting because we've just passed all our UKCA markings, so we're the only fire door provider that can give a UKCA marked external fire door.
I'm going to have to shoot, George, but Elliot, do me a favour. Drop me a mail, and I think what we'll do is we'll have a chat about if we can. If I don't mind doing the heavy lifting, because if you look at this in respect, what it does is it gives you all the frame types, the risk categories, all the stuff. It's all there for you know, no disrespect, for an idiot to select what they want to.
Can I just ask one question, Paul, just before you go? Right. Yeah. So what we're trying to do for the event is figure out what information is needed for us to satisfy the building safety case.
Well, what I'll do is, if you don't.
Sorry, let me just. Yeah. So at one level, we've got landlords, and all they need to do is they perceive all they need to do is make sure that Elliot provides them a test certificate, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, what you're doing here, you're saying that what we need is to ensure that it's been designed properly, it's been installed properly, etc. Now, my understanding is, therefore, that as far as you're concerned, if you are called in by the regulator for a project that is then going through Gateway 2, for example, before you go into construction, you would need to be evidencing that you've actually got this. If the regulator asks the questions, you need to be able to evidence that it's been done properly. Am I right?
Yeah, and what I'll do is, if you don't mind, George, because I'll have a chat with Joe Silly, and you have a chat with Ian McElway as well, because you know Ian, don't you? Yeah. Because I don't mind having some of this stuff displayed, because we're doing this in the other hall, in the FireX hall for PFKG.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a drama to transfer this into what you're doing. No one will have a drama with it, but we'll just go through Ian and Joe, make sure everyone's happy. Because we're doing all the peer reviews on this with Reba at the moment, around all of these 5 key principles, and the other bit, just to show you, is the 7 QA points. I should say 7 QA points.
Yep.
Because everyone's going on around this, but it's all these bits before it.
Yeah.
That's missing. You know, all the 5 QA, and actually, then once you've got the known parameters, then you can do the rest of it. Does that make sense, Elliot? You know, you need to have gone through that. It's that first bit you can't do because you're not fire engineers. That's the problem. That's what's all going, and the fire engineers can't do it, and neither can the architects. That's why it's all going tits up. But I'll have a chat with Joe, because I've got to respond to his walls as a system thing that's on my other screen. You have a chat with Ian, and if you want, Jules, we'll get these sent over, and you can incorporate them.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll pick up with Elliot. I'll explain what we're doing with Fizz and also with Balfour BT as well. So Balfour BT, Martin's on board with the whole product library approach. So
no, 100%, it's the right thing, George. I'm with you. It's the right thing.
Yeah, good.
You know what I mean? It's good.
Yeah, and I spoke to London Underground this morning, and they're interested as well. So we've got some big clients and contractors engaged in it. So.
I know the main guy from London Underground, because we were the ones that made him get the approved product library and change it to a product library because it was all wrong.
Oh, really?
We caused that. Yeah, it was us that caused it. Because
Ah.
I've got all of his documents, all the S documents, all the selections, and it was their library didn't comply with their own documentation. We had to show them. This was over at Paddington. Oh, we caused the rights thing. We did.
Yeah, is it Tom Locke?
Oh, I can't remember. I was trying to find it, but I've got to show because I've got a 20-minute walk.
Okay.
Well, listen,
See you later.
Elliot, really
Cheers.
nice to meet you. Thanks,
Yeah,
mate.
you
Good to
too.
meet you, Cliff. Sorry, I'm a bit all over the place. It was a heavy night. I'm not going to lie, and I've got to go and have a round now about dampers and cavity barriers. I'll catch you
Cheers,
later,
Paul.
guys. Thanks again.
Thanks,
See you soon,
cheers.
mate. Bye.
Oh,
Bye.
Bye.
Cool. Yeah, it's a force of nature, is Paul.
To say the least.
But you know, I mean, what we're obviously trying to do is to make it so that we've got a simple way of achieving that golden thread. What's been surprising to me, even, you know, I learn so much every time we have these sessions, and you know, Paul showed me that several times, and every time he shows it to me, there's you know, I get an extra 20, I understand another 10% or 20% because there's just so much there.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah.
get the impression, George, that we're trying to almost cure or solve the unsolvable. There is almost too much for everybody to consider when putting these things together. It's almost, and it's stripping it back for me sometimes to its simplest form. It is right. What components are going where, and how do they interact together? And if you have the BIM system where you've got a suite of products, you could almost do with it in the background, letting the machine do the work, so you plug in your product and what it is tested in and what it's tested to, and then that almost gives you a spit out at the front of, right, if you're going to build this high rise block of flats, you're going to have to use that door with that wall with that ducting and it's almost done for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the aspiration to do that, Elliot, is good in principle. But I've been doing this for 30 years, and part of the challenge isn't the technology; it's actually getting the knowledge into a structured and addressable form that could do that. So, you know, for example, what you were saying earlier, and also apart from that, also look at the business processes. So, for example, you were just saying earlier about your BIM objects, and you've got some BIM objects that designers can use to place in their models.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're just formulating them now.
Yeah, I can be reasonably confident that people won't use those. Yeah. And they genuinely won't, Elliot. No matter how good they are, you will find that very few people will actually use them. And the reason, there's two reasons for that. One is that the way people use applications like Revit is they'll use the standard families that they work with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Because they've already got them configured, they've already got them used on different projects. That's the first reason. The second is that the way design and build works at the moment, and you know, we're still not there in getting specifications to be moved from performance specifications to prescriptive specifications. And if you've been involved in some of my meetings, you'll know that I'm pushing quite hard for that. But the designers don't want to actually say that it's going to be a distinction door 1, 2, 3. what they want to do is put in there that it's a generic door of this performance specification, and then later on down the line, it gets mapped against what's actually being procured.
Mm.
And although I agree with you, that's probably not the right way of doing it. That's the challenge that we've got. So the first point is that what we're trying to do, and as you say, it's a massive task, is get the knowledge that people like Paul McSolly's got, and people like him, and you, and the other people that are subject matter experts in these individual fields, and try and distill that down into a set of procedures and rules and decision trees. Because what Paul was showing you there in the spreadsheet is the result of him and Paul White and some other subject matter experts going through a logical process to say, right, what do we need to do? What questions do we need to ask? And what information do we need to answer those questions to start to filter through the selection process? And if that can be done, you're right, it's immensely complex. But I think if we can start to move towards that over the next, it might take 3 years, it might take 5 years. At least we're getting down into the detail, because we were talking about it this morning. We had a meeting with Transport for London this morning, and one of the frustrations I think everybody's got is nobody's doing the detail. The BIM standards used to have quite detailed information about how you did things in terms of what an object should contain, what properties it should contain. In recent years, the new BIM standards have made it much more high level.
Yeah.
So you've got to have an information strategy. You've got to agree certain parameters that you're going to work with. Not these are the parameters that we'd expect you to follow. And that's unfortunate, because it just means it's a Wild West. It
undermines the whole reason for the actual product itself.
Correct.
In my opinion.
I agree, and we're fighting against it, and I'd like your support in doing that. One of the things that a fundamental level, if you look at the way the tier 1 contractors like Mace and Balfour Beatty and Bouygues and Waits and Warmup Dixon and people, one of the biggest risks that they've got at the moment under the new Building Safety Act is that they need to have a record of what's been installed in all of their buildings. They've also got to have a record of how they reach those decisions, like Paul's been going through there. But at the moment, they can't even have a record of what's been installed, which is staggering, isn't it? Because if you look at it, the way that's done, it's done by people producing O&Ms. And the O&M, when the O&M is compiled, Elliot, and it's got your products in it, right? The way the O&M compiler will have worked, they'll have a door schedule. They'll then say, somebody will then have matched the door schedule against what was purchased. He'll then come to you and he'll ask for a data sheet. If he's doing it properly,
yeah,
he'll ask for a data sheet. So you'll provide him, hopefully, a PDF of your specification data sheet, maybe a declaration of performance, maybe at some stage a environmental product declaration spreadsheet, PDF, and that gets put into an O&M file. Right? Would you agree?
Well, yeah, I'd like to think even half of that got done, but I don't think it does.
No, exactly. But let's say in the best situation, that's what happens. Now, if you think about it, that means that on every project, you're reliant on somebody who's probably just a database administrator, or not even that. It's just somebody that's doing some clerical work who's been told to go and get from Distinction Doors this data sheet. So they'll probably try and find it on your website and download it, and that will then be put into a folder. They may have picked the wrong one, and therefore, and you've got no idea that that product has been used on that particular project. So, and this happens on every single project. What a simpler way of doing that would be is if there was a free library of data sheets from manufacturers that the manufacturer controls. And therefore, you would know that the product's data that you're providing is the right product data against that particular product. If we then map that to a Revit family or a schedule that has been provided during the design and construction process, then we've got a direct connection between the BIM model and the data, the product data. Now, I want much more machine readable information about the products that you're providing, along the lines that we've done with data templates and things like that. That would be much, that's obviously desirable, but that can be collected later, or you can decide how much of that information you want to share electronically.
Yeah.
We're trying to do this for all products, and we've got several different big tier 1 contractors. It just makes so much sense. I think anyway. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to a conversation I think we had initially about a year ago, with people being very cloak and dagger about sharing their field of application or sharing their DOPs. Now, I think everybody should be open book, and ultimately, there should be a way without giving away, because ultimately the field of application contains too much information about the actual product and its manufacture rather than its performance.
I agree.
So there should be a way of separating the two, so that everybody, and it's public information as to what product provides what performance levels and has what accreditations, and it is as simple as that. So if you take our doors, all our doors are accredited under a third-party scheme with BM4HOUSING, but without going into our field of application, you couldn't tell which door did which, or which standard our side lights or integrated fan lights met. And that's ridiculous, because ultimately it means we provide you with one
bit
in
of the
essence,
information.
one document of information, and you don't know what's what. Whereas if we said we've got these, forget our field of application, we have 3 performance levels, and the product you've got in your building is performance level 2, and that equates to UKCA marking for externally drained fire door sets with side lights coupled to these dimensions. You then know that. Whereas we provide you with a document at the moment, and you could have a door that isn't fit for purpose because it could be 6 months old.
Yes.
And it's how we separate those two things, and that requires BM-Trada or the third-party accreditor to allow us to separate the field of application without it costing a fortune. Because the reason we don't do it like that at the moment is every time we open those documents for testing, they charge us £1,000.
Oh, right. Okay.
So we amalgamate all our field of application, and when we test, we just update it as a whole. Whereas if we did a test, so if we had 3 different tests, so 3 different product performance levels, if you like, every time we did a test on the basic level, and when I say basic, I'm just talking about the fire door in a door set with no glass around it, no nothing, just straight door set. That then allows us to do whatever we've done with that to all the other door sets that are in our different ranges.
Oh, right. Okay.
So if we'd separated those out into performance levels, instead of it costing £1,000 to update all those, it would cost us £3,000 because you have to open each document to make the relevant updates from the single door set. And
Yes.
in the essence of continuous or continual improvement to the product, we do several tests a year. So that might be value.
So, Elliot, can I just test my understanding on this? So let's say, for example, you've got a door, and then you've got a number of different variables on that door. I think is what you're saying is that you would test the type of door, and you get the field of application sorted at that level, but you're limited from testing all of the variable versions because of the way the charging works.
Yeah, absolutely. So for example, with the door
Wow.
set, we would test a door set. So our door set is tested to, let's take a really easy one. So the margins between the frame and the door is between 2 to 3.5 mil, 2 to 4 mil.
Yeah.
We know that door will perform probably up to 6 mil, but you don't test it like that to start with because you want to ensure it passes.
Yeah.
So we are looking to ever decrease or increase those margins to make manufacture and installation easier and less onerous.
Yes.
Because it's less exacting on the installation team and the manufacturer of CNCs. But when we do those tests, if we'd got our categories set out, so we had one field of application for a standard door, one for a standard door with an integrated fan light, and one for a standard door with then coupled side lights or fan lights that were individual units that had been coupled together that had UKCA marking for external use. If we had those 3, that would be better from a building information and a database because that would be more pertinent to that person's building.
Yeah.
But for us, that would, every time we tested anything on the main door, which was the common component to all 3 product categories, that would cost us £3,000 because we would have to open each field of application to update it. And it's just ridiculous. It is absolutely ludicrous because all it is a copy and paste exercise, or all it would be a copy and paste exercise.
And who is being paid? Is it somebody like Exova?
No, BM-Trada. It's BM-Trada.
And what? I mean, I've heard of BM-Trada. It's an association with members, is it?
Yeah, it's an independent testing organisation that gives third-party accreditation to basically the composite fired and the odd timber, but you have to be accredited to either FIRAS or BM-Trada.
And BM-Trada is also the body that when I talk to fire door inspectors, they tell me that they're BM-Trada certified fire door inspectors.
Yeah, it links everybody up. So it links fabricators, installers, maintenance operators. Which is brilliant in a way, because it collates the whole industry and holds them to an exacting standard, which is what we want. But what we don't want is people to profiteer from admin.
Yeah, exactly. So the interesting thing that I had with with a fire door inspector that we're talking to at the moment is that their BM Trada, if there's then a fault on a door that they've inspected, they have to fix it.
But they might have to fix it, but they have to fix it back to the field of application that relates to that door.
And they may not know that.
They will, because they will be given access. So that is the whole point of what we're trying to do with the data tag. So the data tag will carry the breakdown of the component parts that make that door up. So when it fails, or if it fails, or it fails a maintenance call, the maintenance contractor can look at that field of application and go, on this door you have this closer, this handle, this letter plate, for example, and those component parts have to be put back on. You can't just use any old fire rated letter plate, for example, or any closer.
I understand that, Elliot. What I'm just thinking of the practicality of this. So let's say, for example, they that it's a university or something like that. So they've gone and done a fire door inspection of maybe 1,000 fire doors.
Yeah.
And some of them have been in there for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And so they follow the BM Trada process. So they do the inspection, and let's say of the 1,000 fire doors, 100 of them fail.
Yeah.
Right. So they then have to, from what I'm told, under BM Trada, the maintenance company that's responsible for that building can't repair or can't make the corrections. It's got to be done by that fire door, that BM Trada inspector. I didn't realise that. I was told that last week. That may not be right, but that's what I was told.
I can't see why that would be the case. I think the work has to be carried out. What you can't do is retrospectively upgrade fire doors anymore. You can't retrospectively, if something's 10 years old, it won't meet the current standards. So you'd have to put a new door in there that did meet the standards for that are required for that building. As for who undertakes that work, we don't even have to be accredited. That's the thing. As long as that door meets the current standards, is third party accredited, it can be installed by anybody, and that is still the loophole in the system.
Yeah, I'm not talking about installation, because these people, these fire door inspectors, don't install. But what they might do is do some remedial works to that. Let's say, for example, a intermittent strip has failed or something like that. The fitting a new intermittent strip, that's a maintenance task, isn't it?
It is. I would say you've probably picked the one thing that I don't actually know whether you can or can't do.
All right. Or a door closer.
But a door closer, yes. You could, in essence, put any old door closer on, because it won't have a field of application. That
or
door
even
will
hinges.
Not. Yeah, it will not have but again, we're talking about, you're not replacing a door. What you've kind of said there is exactly what happened at Grenfell, because you are taking a component part that claims to be FD30 accredited, but has not been tested against that door. So we don't know how it's going to perform. And that is so that would have been classed as a desktop study prior to Grenfell.
Yeah, but so if I mean there's obviously there's the ideal and there's the practical. I'm not arguing either way. I'm just saying that you know, for example, one of our customers is Sodexo, and they're managing, you know, Manchester Royal Infirmary, and they've probably got 4,000 or 5,000 fire doors there. Right. I might be wrong about that, but I mean, they'll have a lot. And therefore, if they do fire door inspections, along the lines that I was showing you earlier, if for example something isn't, you know, if the gaps aren't right, they won't buy a new fire door. I don't think they'd adjust it. If for example, you know, the hinges have been, you know, after 10 years or something like that of need replacing. My understanding is, maybe wrongly, that as long as they're getting a hinge of the same quality, of the same performance that was replacing that previous one, then that's what they would replace it with.
That's commercial, but I would say that that's not the case. So for example, if our door in 5 years' time, if the closer went on or was missing, or if somebody replaced a closer that wasn't one of the 3 that we've had tested, that door would be non-compliant. Same with the hinge, same with the lock. The only things that aren't are actual handles, spy holes, etc. They are a variable that don't form part of the field of application. But if it was so to your point, if the door closer, if in 5 years' time one of our doors is inspected and somebody goes, oh, there's a door closer missing there, I'll just go to Rutland and get a standard rack and pinion. It's fire accredited and put it on. That would not be acceptable because it is not in our field of application, and that would formulate a desktop study rather than an actual tested unit and would be non-compliant.
Okay, but in the practical world, what obviously, and like I say, I'm not arguing one way or the other. I'm just,
and again, I'm not trying to be funny here or flippant.
Yeah.
But that is exactly what happened at Grenfell. So if we say the practical world, if you taught the practical world, you might as well not do what Paul's doing, because in the practical world, people might not even think, oh, it's a fire door. That's a wall. That's a fire door. We'll just put another fire door in.
Yeah, it's a matter of graduation, isn't it? Yeah. So if for example, in your field of application, you would presumably include in your detailed information to the people that are, you know, should have access to that. Let's say, for example, it's somebody like Equans or if they are appropriately trained and competent in replacing hinges or replacing the door closer, as long as they know what door closer or hinge should be used, and presumably you could provide that information.
Yeah, 100%.
Then they should be able to undertake that.
Absolutely, absolutely, and they don't have to be accredited. As long as the right unit, as long as the right product is used on that, which is part of the field of application, and then when they do the remeasurements, that door is still within how it should be when it was first, or as it should be within its testing arena, then anybody can carry out that maintenance work at the moment.
So therefore, as long as so under those circumstances, the way in which you're managing that at the moment is in the, what do you call it, a plug or something like that goes into the door?
Yeah, it's an NFC data chip that sits in amongst this. We have 3 dowels at the moment, hinge side. One proves that the door is manufactured under audited fully FPC accredited conditions. It's been installed properly and which scheme it's accredited to. So it just sits in amongst those.
Yeah, so that information, if we want it, let's say for example, we've got where I'm trying to get to with this is we want to be able to make it so that when somebody comes along with, let's say they're using the fire door inspector is using Bolster or Plan Radar or one of those type of applications. What's concerning me at the moment is that the fire door inspector doesn't, they create a new record. Yeah.
What, for the door?
Yeah.
Our record should already be on there, so it will already be uploaded with all the previous information. Like I say, so we use a system called Boris, but our system can be integrated into any and is held independently, not held by us. And it would have the installation. It would have a reference point back to the field of application, so that the person doing the maintenance could see what component parts are meant to be on that door.
Yeah, so that's ideal. So the point I'm making though is that one person, I mean, we're working on a project, and Cliff here is working on a project at the moment for Barnet Council, and we've taken the O&Ms and the information on the penetration seals has been created in Bolster, right? So what we've got are a series of PDF drawings with handwritten notes on them, and then referenced a Bolster report. Yeah, Bolster's similar to Boris.
Yeah.
Okay. And you've got for each of the items that they find as they're going through, Bolster issues a number, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever, against that particular asset. So the photographs and the record is against that, right?
Yeah.
So what we've been doing is taking those and putting them into a spatial model. This is an active plan, a spatial model. So we've actually got that as a unique asset. I then spoke to them, the council yesterday, and I said to them, so you've told us that you're also using Hilti, yeah, which I've now found is actually a product that they've acquired now. Hilti have acquired called Fieldwire, but it's a bit similar to. It's coming under the Hilti brand, and they're using that to do inspections of fire doors and penetration and fire stopping. So I said to the Barnet project manager, "What about the Bolster information?" And he said, "What Bolster information?" And I said, "The fire stopping survey that you did 2 years ago." He said, "I don't know about that. I wasn't around."
Right.
Yeah. So the new fire stopping inspector, they're using their software, which is, as I say, Hilti. So they will be inspecting the same fire doors and the same same fire stopping as the people that did it previously, but they're giving them brand new references.
So how are they going to link the field of application of those doors to the new reference?
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Now, I think what I've just described there, because I spoke to the sales guy from Hilti yesterday, what I've just described there is absolutely common across the whole bloody industry.
Right.
Right? Because the way inspections are recorded, we're ending up with we're in one building, we've got your golden thread, we've got a plan radar golden thread, a bolster golden thread.
Yeah, absolutely.
It all needs to relate back to the space and the individual asset that's in the space. And therefore, we need to be able to have that machine readable connection, even if it's just at a data sheet level against that particular product, that you can then connect back to say that that came from Distinction Doors and it's held in this database. I think what you're saying is that we connect to that database, you know, as long as somebody's got the rights to do it.
Well,
you
it's
could
all
pull that back.
permission. It's all permission driven. So,
Yeah.
so let's say you go to Barnet Council and say, right, we want the FDS fire door set in. We've already done 3/4 of our work, but now we know we need to be UKCA compliant with all balcony or external facing fire doors. We want you to undertake the work. We could permission, like I say, it's a third party held database. We can grant access to that to basically whoever we like.
And is there a way of doing that connection electronically so we can tie it back to the individual asset, so that, for example, the person that's doing the inspection may need to look at your data, which gives them the field of application. They may need to look at somebody else's data who was the record of who installed it, and also somebody else's data that might be something that relates to the wall it's gone into.
Yeah,
and
so
also maybe the fire stopping as well, because you wouldn't hold the fire stopping, would you, around the
no,
door?
not at all. So our data capture is literally the golden thread. So it's point of origin, point of manufacture, then that manufacture literally drives the field of application that door has been made to.
Yeah.
Then we have the installation. So at point of installation, that chip, that data will be tagged to an address. So I don't know, flat 1 Dawson Towers for Barnet Council. That unique chip reference will be tagged to that property.
Yeah.
And it will have all the installation pictures and accreditations for the installer. And then obviously the maintenance person will then go 6 months to a year later, they will scan the NFC reader at the top of the door. It will bring up all that information for them, and then they can add to that information, and then their accreditations will sit on there as well.
Okay.
Now, what we won't be able to capture, or not at the moment, we could do, because we could add other fields in there, is what substructure that has been put into. But we know from our due diligence that we will not fit into any substructure that isn't compatible with our field of application. So when you revert back to the initial installation and our field of application, it will clearly state there what substructures that door set is permissible to be fit into.
And if the substructure is changed,
you'll have to change the door if it's not within our field of application, because we
Yeah,
can't guarantee that door would work properly.
Yeah, I meant it the other way around. So let's say, for example, the substructure, the record of what that substructure is. Cliff, you'd be able to help me here, but the record of the substructure, I mean, presumably you'd need to replace. Let's say, for example, they've had water leaks, and therefore part of the wall has had to be replaced. Because, you know, as I understand it, if plasterboard gets wet, it loses its ability to perform as a fire compartment. So if they were then replacing it, if the door's not damaged, they'd just want to replace the wall, wouldn't they?
Yeah, as long as it's a like for like replacement and that met the criteria for that to still perform. Yeah, they have zero, unless they're replacing something, I would think probably within 60 mil of the actual door set, because that could affect the obviously the anchoring of the door set to the substructure. But I can't see that wouldn't happen really. They would have to take the door out to replace the wall and then reinstall the door in a proper manner, and that door would still be fit for purpose.
Yeah. Cliff, have you got any questions on that?
Yeah, hi Elliot. I was going to ask
Hi, Cliff.
about whether or not you register your details with LABC. You've mentioned all types of accreditation that you have, but do you do that at all? So I appreciate that you have different situations and fields of applications, but do you have any of them that are registered with LABC?
LABC, sorry, I
The
might be
local,
showing my ignorance. I don't know.
I'm sorry,
Building control.
property building control for robust details.
Not as far as I know. But again, that's not to say that our fabricators, who are the end manufacturer and installer, might have done, but I can certainly find that out for you.
Yeah, I can fully understand that you are door manufacturers, and then you try to specify a door or help specify to select a door for its its actual application. But I mean, quite often, a compartment wall will be, a couple of layers of fire line plasterboard each side to make up 1 or 2 hours or whatever it is, and that's a pretty standard construction.
Yeah.
And I just thought maybe the route to go. I think it was you that started out by saying we're trying to solve a lot of problems here. Maybe a route to go would be down that robust details route. So what's the most common installation of your doors that are fire critical, and try and get some LABC certificate on it. And then if that in the future, any repairs need to be done, then they will be carried out in accordance with those details. It might be something, one way of getting some kind of governance around this.
That's an interesting idea.
Because you get them for things like cavity trays and all sorts. There's a whole library of details. And I think that they possibly need to expand that, library for the Building Safety Act.
So the LABC, that is that an association of local authority building control officers?
It is a local authorities, yeah. So each local authority, I'm not quite sure how it works, but yeah, it definitely is local authority, but it needs to be, national, really, doesn't it? Nationwide. The detail is a detail. It doesn't matter where it is. But I mean, I suppose it needs to be local because different authorities are in different areas. If you're in Scotland, you would fix, every other roof tile rather than every 5th row of roof tiles. So details will change depending on the location of the buildings. But when it comes to fire inside the building, presumably that's always going to be the same.
That's a really good suggestion, actually. What do you think, Elliot?
No, I'm all for it. It's how you link that to 50, 60, 70 different products that are on the marketplace, and different door types that have been installed. But if you could get everybody, because everybody would have to adhere to it, and then they would pick out the applicable door set, I presume, to the one that they've got installed. The problem that would work perfectly for current and ongoing installs. The problem is we've got such a mixture of untested doors out there that people are trying to either make good or get away with not retesting, that until you've got that actual test data, you can't obviously add the.
If you had a robust detail for a stud wall, 5 compartment wall, at least we've got something to work with then. So this is how it needs to be repaired, these fixings.
Yeah.
It's something to go on, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Okay, we're coming up to the end of the period. There's a few people that haven't turned up, so we'll be chasing them, won't we, Richard?
Yes, we certainly will be. We don't let anyone get away.
But I found it very helpful anyway. And we've got a series of other. I mean, I think we've got the development meeting next week, and I think there's about 20 odd people responded to that
the
one.
Development meeting's very busy next week. Yeah, they'll be probably approaching 30 by the time we're away. Yeah.
Yeah. So so the purpose of this, Elliot, really is to really understand from people where they are on the journey, and what is it that we think is going to be practically useful in terms of being ready for the regulator.
Yeah.
I
still think, George, we're doing so much. Well, you're doing so much, and we're helping a little bit with that. But fundamentally, the biggest piece is education to actual procurement teams within local authorities, social housing, and construction companies, because people are still taking.
It's the construction companies, Elliot, that we need to. Well, it's two things really. Actually, in my sort of experience, the landlords aren't. Well, the landlords are engaged. In fact, no, I'm going to step back from this. The landlords aren't really directly engaged at the moment in product selection. They leave that to designers and contractors. That's been my experience. And I'm not saying that's right, but that's been my experience. And therefore, the people we need to really target are probably the tier one contractors. Even they aren't the ones that make the product selections. They might be on doors, but in most products,
they don't. they don't. It's the subcontractor that makes the final. I'm sick to death of being specified on projects, and then the subcontractor using a similar or like product, and it just drives me absolutely crazy.
I know, and that's definitely what we're trying to change, and that's part of this process of having a data sheet.
Yeah,
because what we're trying to do is tie this into the technical submittal process that they all operate, and therefore that's the point at which the tier one contractor can basically say to a specialist subcontractor, no, you're not going to swap it for that. You use the one that was specified.
Yeah.
That's why there are two gateways, to make sure that you can't swap it out at the end if it's driven by cost. So you have to, there's the golden thread of who made the decision, why it was made. You're basically taking responsibility for it then as well, aren't you?
But what we've got to do is make it simple for the trade contractor, or so the main contractor, to make that decision. And a good way of doing that is to have the data sheet. So what we're looking to do, Elliot, is, as Paul said there, do you know the Finishers and Interior Specialists Association?
No.
FIS? Yeah.
No.
Look them up. FIS, Finishers and Interior Specialists. The chief exec of that trade association used to be the chief exec of the British Woodworking Federation.
Right.
Yeah. So he knows a lot about doors. A lot of what the finishes people do is things like interior finishes and things like that. So plasterboard and stuff. but they're part of the group that Paul's working with at the moment, which is the passive fire group. So what we've agreed to do is to pull together product data and design information from a series of manufacturers and installers and designers. So we could include you in that pilot if that would interest you. I think you get some good profile from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's as we said back in the day, this is about the greater good and a duty of care for us all manufacturers to provide A, the right information, B, the right product, but C, keep everybody safe moving forward. So if we get business out of it, that's brilliant. But yeah, my primary concern, well, one should lead to the other. My primary concern is that people follow due process. And if they follow due process, then the people that are in this group and are sticking to legislation will benefit as well. But any profile is much appreciated.
So what I can guarantee you is that you will get a lot of exposure to people like Mace and Balfour Beatty and Bouygues and the like, because those are the people that are going to be pulling information. The other thing I would say is that we're also going to include a lot of the big architectural practices. So we've got good relationships with them, people like PRP, and we'll include them in as well.
Yeah.
Also, fire engineering companies as well. So I think this could be really quite exciting. The other part of the equation is obviously within the group to have maybe a couple of people who are leading on each of the product types. So what I'm planning to do, we've got on the fire damper side of things, we've got Swigon, which they're like Action Air and things like that. So Stephen Gore is going to, I think, lead that for us. So the point about that is that although we want all the Swigon products actually recorded, obviously we want, Carlisle's and other people's products on as well.
Yeah.
And what would be interesting or helpful, if you're interested, you could become that leader for the fire door side of things.
Yeah, that would be brilliant.
Yeah. It's a collaborative effort, but then, if we've got the fire door group agreeing that they're going to, at least at a very simple level, just providing data sheets, then we've got something that can glue together. So let's.
There's no smoke and mirrors from us, as I said before, George. Bar the chemical mixture of our frame and door set, I'm happy to share all the findings, all the secrets, all the test results, because it's about education. It is a massive educational piece. And the more information we provide as manufacturers, the more we can let people understand why it's important, why it's not the throwaway cheap product that it once was, because all of these things come at a cost.
And the point is, to be frank, what you'll be able to do is set the bar. Yeah. So
absolutely.
That's it will, perhaps create a more level playing field for you. Okay, I'm really interested in seeing how we could move forward with that LABC thing though, because building control is something it's a very topical thing at the moment. I don't know if you know what's happened. I don't know the detail of this, but part of building control has moved into the HSE.
Right. Okay.
Because the view was that building control, local authority building control, was not adequately sort of robust and the like. And also building control, there's a number of different private building control companies.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think part of the HSE, as part of the regulator, they've taken on some sort of building control duties. I think they've actually recruited people from, or they've inherited people from local authorities. I'm not quite sure how it works.
The express is that the local authority of building control now have a new boss, the HSE. They're basically reporting to the HSE now, aren't they?
Is that the way it's done? Right.
Well, that's the way it's looking. The HSE are the ones that actually have that 12-week period to sign off the building design at stage 1.
Yes.
And then, of course, I think that at stage 2, it'll get signed off much quicker if there haven't been any changes from what was specified in stage 1. So you're less likely to get that swap out, I think, in stage 2. If you can confirm exactly what was designed in stage 1 is what's being built, they'll say, well, there you go, you've done it, fine. We just need to go and inspect it to confirm it.
So those details that you were talking about earlier, Cliff, that would be a way that Elliot could contribute to that process. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that,
What,
yeah.
what would we need to do? What would Elliot need to do? What would we need to, would we need to pull in an architect into that as well, so that we could get those standardized details?
There is a process for getting the details standardized, and it's all on their website. I've put the link into the chat here, and it'll just walk you through it. And I think if you went in there and said, we would like some details to become robust in order to satisfy the health and safety, not just the water penetration of a building, but we actually want to make sure that it's to do with the Building Safety Act, that side of things. Because at the moment, it does seem to focus more on water penetration into buildings, the robust details that you can see, and structure, but not so much fire safety. And I think it's because it's much more complex, as Elliot's explained. You get different door sets with different components on them in different substructures. But there must be one that's a lot more common than another, perhaps to start off with that one and get the ball rolling and take it from there.
Yeah, I think the one thing you might struggle with is the age of the product, like I said. So you will have such a vast difference. You'll have fire doors in there that are 30, 40 years old. You'll have some that have just been put in. But I suppose everything and every process has to start somewhere.
Yeah,
so,
if we do it on new ones,
yeah,
could we do it on new ones, Cliff?
I think you'd have to. I think you'd have to, because the current standards are the exacting standards.
Yeah. So
yeah.
What I was thinking, Elliot, was we've Joe Stott from AHR. You know AHR, the architects?
Yeah.
They're big. So Joe's quite active in our little community. Also, Daz from David Miller. He's very receptive to these things. So what we could do is maybe put together a meeting next week or something like that with an architect. We could maybe bring somebody like Knauf or British Gypsum into it as well, so that we've got the door and the substrate. Fine. Would that make sense, Cliff?
I think so. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's a team. It's a team that builds the detail up, isn't it? So I think all those they'll all need to be involved in coming up with the detail that works. It's a composite. Okay. The fire compartment is a composite. It's made up of all sorts. There are smoke seals. There are the doors. There are the fixings of the doors. There's the subliner for the door, and then the wall itself. So yeah, everybody needs to be involved in it. I'd say cool. All of you mentioned.
Okay, so I think that's something, Richard, but we need to pick up, don't we? And
we need to. That needs a bit of organisation, doesn't it?
Good. Well, I think we're well over now. Thank you very much for your time, Elliot. Are you happy with?
Has it been worthwhile? It's brilliant. Yeah. That's I think sometimes from a personal and a purely selfish perspective, sometimes it's better when other people don't join because you get.
Well, I think we're very honoured for you that you took time out, Elliot, from winning awards.
I know. Have you seen the King's Award?
Oh, is that a new one? I missed one today.
All right. So our product. So if you go on the BBC, I can announce it now because it's become official. I've just seen the announcement. So one of our big manufacturers is Shellforce in Birmingham, and they've just been awarded the King's Business Award.
Wow, fantastic!
So they've not been necessarily awarded it for our product, but I will take a bit. They are they're all inclusive, so they employ blind, deaf, impaired people, and they produce the most wonderful product. Which is primarily our fire doors. So we've got Birmingham City Council, but we're also now going into the London boroughs with them. So it's just been announced.
Brilliant.
So with that, with your plugs, just thinking about this at the moment, are you saying that with your that you've actually got a record of where all your doors have been installed?
Not all of them. It only came in
well, let's say
recently,
since the tag's been going in.
But yeah, we will have, yeah.
And do you know that in the context of the building, or do you just know it as an ID?
Well, it's an ID, and as I say, that ID has an address. So we know if it's a tower block, we don't know what floor it's on because we don't know how many rooms are on each floor, but we know that it will be flat. Let's say flat 1 Dawson Towers will go up to maybe flat 100 Dawson Towers, so we can link a door to a particular. And what we can also do is then link that door back to a batch. So should there ever be the worst case scenario, we'll be able to quarantine that batch if we could prove that door failed on its performance, and basically it's on us to replace that door set.
Okay, but coming back on that, thank you for that. That's really helpful. But what you're saying, when you've got that door, you've got the location. The location would include what flat it's been installed.
It is the exact address that it's been put into.
We could do something with that, couldn't we, Cliff?
Well, is it XYZ coordinates or just an address?
It would just be an address.
It's just an address, not necessarily.
Yeah, we could do something with that, but if you had the XYZ coordinates, if you took a photograph of it with your GPS switched on, then you could build, you'd know exactly where it was in the building then as well.
Yeah, we could that would be done. The point, see, just so I understand it correctly, Elliot, I'll repeat what I done. What Distinction Doors do, they provide. I don't know whether you manufacture, do you, Elliot? But you buy in the door blanks, don't you?
Yeah. So so the actual fire frame and door is ours. We just don't assemble it. So what we would do is we buy the door and the kit in from the Far East, and then it is transported. So we will either then manufacture the door and fabricate it so that it's got all the lock prep and hinge prep. It will go to an end fabricator either in Land's End or John O'Groats and everywhere in between, and they will manufacture that product to our standard, so our field of application. That tag we generate that tag when that door comes in, and that tag links into that specific door and is given an ID before it leaves our building.
Can I just so when you say the manufacturer, I mean you're a manufacturer?
No, we are we kind of are, but we're not an end manufacturer. So we'd go to someone like Nationwide or Hearst Plastics or Shellforce in this instance, who've just won the King's Award. So they actually assemble all the component parts. So they are the manufacturer.
So do you actually manufacture the frame and things, or are you saying that you buy in all the component parts that goes to, based on your design, that goes to a fabricator to put together? And then
sorry, dog's going wild. Just bear with me 1 second. I just need to. We've got a killer dog. It's about 3 inches off the floor, but it makes the noise like it's a timber.
Always the way with those dogs, isn't it? Always.
Yeah.
I think they're huge in their heads. So yeah, I'm just thinking that if these blanks come from the Far East and they are fire doors, and then they get kind of, you know, holes punched through them, are they then certified again and still being fire rated? It's a question for Elliot, I know, when he comes back.
They are, yeah, because that's what's tested.
Oh no, we're good, thank you.
Right, they are. Oh, yeah, all of their designs are tested. I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
fine, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Elliot's firm that actually gets them tested and certified. So they're buying in the component elements.
Hi,
This is
sorry, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Do you want to ask that question again, Cliff?
Yeah, Elliot, you mentioned that the blanks come in from the Far East. So I
Yeah.
was just thinking, so at that time when it comes in, it's like half-hour or 1 8-hour rated door. But then when you're putting your ironmongery in and putting in the vision panels and things, is it tested again so that you can confirm that it still has that same integrity?
Oh no, so everything. So when we set up, so we were audited in the factory in Taiwan. So they were fully audited independently on their manufacture. Then all the 49 tests that we've done basically are just a consistency test. So we do, the door doesn't change. It's just cut out, and we cut it out exactly the same every time for the door styles, and then we tested all the different door styles. So everything has been individually tested after, and you have to. That is the massive difference between a timber fire door and a composite fire door. Every variable is tested on a composite fire door, whereas they're not on timber.
Basically, each of your designs is tested after it's been put into the
after
door.
it's been in essence, every door arrives as a solid, basically solid door, and then our CNC machine will cut out whatever design we chose. We've got about 12 different designs in fire doors, and then they are individually tested, and that process is replicated exactly the same every time for consistency purposes.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Good. Okay, Elliot, thank you very much for your time. We'll try and set something up. I'll speak to Joe Stott and maybe a couple of architects.
We've got quite a few fire door people, haven't we, now involved? So with different disciplines, but some of them are manufacturers, aren't they?
Yeah, so we do everything. So we actually do, when we go for testing, we will manufacture the product, and then what we do is almost give it out under license, if you like, to
I was
different
thinking,
people.
if you ran a little group for us, for your little group, why have I just forgotten your name? Elliot.
Elliot. Right.
Sorry.
I didn't know whether you were talking to George, but
no, I was just thinking we've got a few people as a starter for a little group for you.
Yeah,
that's helpful.
Yeah. Good. Okay, I'm going to need to go. Thank you. And
cheers.
Yeah,
thanks.
Look forward
Thanks
to
very
hearing
much for your
from you.
time.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Cheers, Elliot, and you.
We'll catch up later, Cliff.
Bye bye.
Okay, George.
Cheers.